Margaret had always imagined her golden years filled with laughter, warm family dinners, and the joy of watching her grandchildren grow. So when her daughter suggested she move closer, it felt like the perfect decision. A new home just a few streets away. What could go wrong? But as the months passed, reality set in. Calls went unanswered, visits became rare, and suddenly, she felt more alone than ever. If you've ever thought about relocating to be near your children, you might want to reconsider. While it seems like the safest, most loving choice, the truth is, this decision can backfire in ways you never expected. From fading independence to emotional distance, the challenges can be overwhelming. Before you pack up your life for what seems like a perfect plan, let's talk about the 15 surprising reasons why moving closer to your kids might not be the dream you hoped for. And trust me, the first one will make you rethink everything. 1. Your kids have their own lives. Margaret sat by the window, watching the autumn leaves tumble to the ground. It had been weeks since she last saw her daughter in person. She sighed, scrolling through their last text exchange, short, polite, and painfully distant. How did we get here? She wondered. When she moved to be closer to her daughter's family, she envisioned impromptu coffee dates, babysitting her grandkids, and Sunday dinners filled with laughter. But reality had other plans. Her daughter, Sarah, was knee-deep in work deadlines, school pickups, and social obligations. The occasional visit was rushed, filled with distracted glances at the clock and unfinished conversations. This is a story many seniors can relate to. The idea of being near family offers a sense of security, but in practice, it doesn't always lead to more quality time together. Our adult children are busy navigating their own responsibilities, careers, parenting, friendships, even their own need for downtime. It's not that they don't love us, it's just that their time is stretched thin. And here's the difficult truth. Moving closer doesn't guarantee more connection. In some cases, it can even strain the relationship. Expectations aren't always aligned. Parents hope for frequent visits, while their children assume proximity means less urgency to check in, because, well, mom's just down the street. So what can you do? If you're contemplating a move, have an honest conversation first. Ask your kids about their daily lives, their routines, and how they truly envision your role. If their schedules are already packed, consider whether moving near them will really offer the closeness you desire, or if staying in a community where you have friendships and routines might serve you better. Margaret eventually realized she had to take control of her own social life. She joined a book club, made new friends at a community center, and slowly built a life that wasn't dependent on her daughter's availability. And in doing so, something unexpected happened. Her relationship with Sarah improved. Their rare moments together became more intentional, more meaningful. Instead of waiting for connection, she created her own. 2. Social circles shrink. Helen had always been the life of the party. Bingo nights, afternoon walks with neighbors, spontaneous lunch outings. Her social life was rich and full. That changed when she packed up and moved across the country to be near her son. The first few weeks were exciting. Unpacking, setting up her new space, and spending time with her grandkids. But then came the silence. No more knocks on the door from old friends. No familiar faces at the grocery store. Her world had suddenly become smaller. When seniors move for family, they often underestimate the impact of losing their established social network. Friends are more than just company. They are a source of emotional support, shared history, and companionship that family alone cannot always replace. While children have their daily routines and built-in social circles, aging parents can struggle to find their own. Starting over socially is much harder than it seems. It takes time to integrate into a new community, and without an intentional effort, many seniors find themselves lonelier than they were before the move. Helen eventually recognized she needed to be proactive. She signed up for a senior exercise class, started volunteering at a local charity, and even rekindled her passion for painting in a community art group. While she still missed her old friends, She was building a new support system, one that made her feel connected instead of isolated. Moving near family can be a wonderful choice, but only if you also nurture your own social life. Because at the end of the day, companionship comes in many forms, not just from our children. 3. Unrealistic expectations lead to disappointment. Stanley never thought he'd feel lonely while living just 10 minutes from his daughter. Yet here he was, sitting alone at the kitchen table, waiting for a phone call that might not come. When his wife passed away, his daughter convinced him to move closer so they could spend more time together. It sounded perfect, but now he was seeing the cracks in that dream. His daughter worked late. His grandkids were teenagers, more interested in friends and sports than family dinners. And worst of all, he felt guilty for even wanting more time with them. Many seniors move near their children with an unspoken expectation that they'll be included in daily life, that family will make time, that they won't feel lonely. But the reality is, children don't always see things the same way. They may assume their parents are independent and self-sufficient. They might not realize how much their parents long for visits, calls, or just a simple check-in. This gap in expectations creates resentment. Parents feel neglected, children feel pressured, and instead of closeness there's tension. For Stanley, the realization was bittersweet. He knew his daughter loved him, but she had her own life. Instead of waiting for invitations, he made changes. He joined a local golf club, found a group of retirees who met for coffee every week, and reconnected with old friends through video calls. And something interesting happened. As he stopped expecting time with his daughter, she started making more effort. The guilt melted away, replaced by genuine, cherished moments. Because the truth is, moving closer to family doesn't always guarantee connection. But when you create your own joy, the moments you do share become even more precious. 4. Feeling like a burden. Margaret never wanted to be one of those parents, the kind who called too often, who needed too much, who became an obligation rather than a joy. But here she was, hesitating before dialing her daughter's number, her finger hovering over the screen. Am I bothering her? It had started subtly, a rushed response, a sigh when Margaret asked for a ride to a doctor's appointment. The way her granddaughter, once so eager to chat, now kept her AirPods in during visits. She wasn't imagining it, she was intruding. This is the unspoken fear of many seniors who move closer to their children. The realization that instead of being a welcomed part of the family's daily life, they sometimes feel like another responsibility on an already overloaded plate. And let's be honest, our kids are juggling a lot. Work, children, marriage, finances. No matter how much they love us, caregiving, even in small doses, can feel like one more thing to manage. And when parents start sensing that, the guilt creeps in. Margaret found herself pulling away. She stopped asking for help, started making excuses when her daughter offered to pick her up. She even considered moving again, thinking, maybe I made a mistake. But here's the thing, feeling like a burden isn't always about reality. It's about perception. The solution: clear, open conversations, and a proactive approach to independence. Margaret decided to take charge. Instead of relying on her daughter, she looked into senior rideshare services, joined a walking group, and even found a neighbor who loved swapping home-cooked meals. And something remarkable happened. She started feeling lighter, more in control, less dependent, and surprisingly, her daughter started reaching out more. The pressure was gone, the guilt replaced with a genuine desire to spend time together, not out of duty, but out of love. The takeaway: independence is a gift to yourself and your children. The more you build your own support system, the more time with family becomes about connection, not obligation. 5. Loss of independence. Stanley never thought he'd miss grocery shopping, or paying bills, or even deciding what to eat for dinner. But ever since moving near his daughter, everything seemed controlled. You don't need to drive anymore, Dad. I'll handle your bank stuff online, don't worry. Oh, just let us take care of that. At first, it felt like love, care, protection. But soon, it started feeling like something else, like he was fading. Many seniors move closer to their children for support, thinking it will make life easier. And in some ways, it does. But what happens when help starts feeling like control? It often begins with small things: family members insisting on handling paperwork, managing doctor's appointments, even picking what you eat. It comes from a place of love, but over time, it chips away at independence in ways that are hard to get back. Stanley began to feel invisible in his own life. Decisions were made for him, not with him. And the worst part, he let it happen because it seemed easier than arguing. One day, after his daughter ordered a meal for him at a restaurant, without asking, he reached a breaking point. He gently but firmly said, "I appreciate what you do for me, but I need to make my own choices." That was the turning point. He started pushing back in small ways, paying his own bills, scheduling his own appointments, taking short drives to regain his confidence. He set boundaries. "Let me tell you when I need help." And something incredible happened. His self-esteem returned. His daughter, at first resistant, eventually saw the change in him. She respected him more, not less. The lesson? Moving near family doesn't mean losing yourself. If you don't guard your independence, it can quietly slip away. The key is balance, knowing when to accept help, and when to remind everyone, including yourself, that you're still capable. 6. Comparing to other families. Helen sat at her granddaughter's school play, watching from the back row. She had been looking forward to this for weeks, excited to see her little performer shine. But as she glanced around, she noticed something. Other grandparents were front and center, holding hands with their grandkids, exchanging hugs, laughing. Meanwhile, Helen sat alone, her daughter across the room chatting with other parents. She gave Helen a quick wave, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. A lump formed in her throat. Am I just here? Comparison is a thief. It sneaks in when you least expect it. At family gatherings, on social media, in casual conversations, you see another senior getting more attention from their kids, being included in vacations, hugged tighter at holiday dinners. And suddenly, the doubt creeps in. Why don't my kids treat me that way? Did I do something wrong? The truth? Every family dynamic is different. Some adult children are naturally more affectionate. Some families prioritize tradition, and some, like Helen's, show love in quieter ways, helping with errands, being reliable in emergencies, making time when they can. But that didn't stop the sting. And Helen knew she had two choices. She could let comparison make her bitter, or she could choose to see love in the ways it was given. So she started shifting her focus. Instead of waiting to be included, she made invitations herself. Let's have lunch, just us. Instead of dwelling on the differences, she reminded herself of the unique bond she had with her daughter, even if it wasn't picture perfect. And the biggest change, she stopped measuring her worth by how much attention she received. She built friendships with other seniors, created her own moments of joy, and stopped expecting her daughter to fill every emotional need. 7. The cost of moving and living expenses. When Margaret first considered moving closer to her daughter, she thought of everything except the one thing that would hit hardest: her bank account. Selling her home was supposed to free up cash, but by the time she factored in realtor fees, closing costs, and moving expenses, the money wasn't as substantial as she had imagined. Then came the sticker shock. Rents in her daughter's city were nearly double what she was used to. Property taxes, higher. Cost of living, unfamiliar and expensive. At first, Margaret brushed it off. It'll balance out, she told herself. But the balance never came. Instead, it was little things. Her favorite grocery brands weren't available. The local hair salon charged twice as much. Even a simple lunch out felt like a splurge. The financial cushion she had relied on back home was disappearing faster than she had planned. This is a reality many seniors face when moving to be near family. What seems like a simple relocation can turn into a financial trap if not carefully planned. The cost of moving isn't just about a U-Haul rental, it's about adjusting to a new economic environment. And without a clear budget, it's easy to fall into financial strain. Margaret eventually had to downsize again, not because she wanted to, but because she had underestimated the financial toll. The lesson? Before moving, calculate the numbers realistically. What looks good on paper might not feel so good when bills start piling up. 8. Healthcare may not be what you expect. Helen had always prided herself on taking care of her health. She had a trusted doctor who knew her medical history inside and out, a pharmacist who remembered her by name, and a routine that kept her feeling her best. But after moving closer to her son, she quickly realized something. Finding new doctors wasn't as simple as she thought. She spent weeks navigating insurance plans, only to find that many specialists in her new city weren't accepting new patients. The wait list for a geriatric doctor? 6 months, the closest pharmacy, a 20-minute drive away, and she didn't drive anymore. For seniors, healthcare access is everything, yet it's one of the most overlooked factors when deciding to move closer to family. Think about it, you've spent years, maybe decades, building relationships with healthcare providers who know you. Your prescriptions are on file, your medical history is understood, and your comfort level is established. Moving means starting from scratch, and depending on where you relocate, the availability and quality of care might not be what you're used to. Helen had to learn the hard way. She eventually found a doctor, but it took months of stress, paperwork, and frustration. Her advice to other seniors: prioritize health care first. No matter how wonderful it sounds to be near family, if medical care is lacking, your quality of life will suffer. 9. Downsizing regrets. Stanley never thought he'd miss his old workshop. The wooden shelves filled with tools, the scent of sawdust in the air, the quiet satisfaction of building something with his own hands. But now, standing in his new apartment, 2 bedrooms, no garage, he felt displaced. When he moved closer to his daughter, he had to let go of a lifetime of possessions. At first, he thought it wouldn't matter. It's just stuff. But as the weeks passed, he realized that many of those things weren't just objects, they were pieces of his identity. His workbench, gone. The old armchair where he read every night, didn't fit in the new space. The garden where he spent hours every morning, replaced by a small balcony with a potted plant. Many seniors underestimate the emotional toll of downsizing. Moving often means trading a familiar home for a smaller, more manageable space. While practical, it can lead to a deep sense of loss. The home you leave behind isn't just bricks and mortar, it's memories, routines, and a place where you felt completely yourself. Stanley eventually adapted. He found a small workshop at a local community center where he could tinker and build again. But he admitted that he hadn't prepared for the emotional weight of downsizing. If you're thinking of moving, take a step back and ask, am I truly ready to let go of this chapter? Because once you do, there's no turning back. 10. Unspoken expectations and unclear boundaries. Margaret had always imagined being the kind of grandmother who was deeply involved, helping with homework, baking cookies, maybe even picking up the grandkids from school. So when she moved closer to her daughter, she assumed that was exactly how things would be. But reality looked different. Her daughter never actually asked for help. In fact, she seemed to hesitate before leaving the kids with Margaret, and when Margaret offered advice, whether about parenting, home decor, or even meal planning, she noticed a shift in her daughter's tone. A clipped, polite response, a half-hearted smile. The tension was growing, and Margaret couldn't figure out why. Wasn't this what family was supposed to do? Support each other? This is one of the biggest pitfalls of moving closer to family. Unspoken expectations that don't match reality. Parents assume they'll be included in daily life, while adult children assume their parents just want to live nearby, not necessarily to be involved in every decision. The problem? Nobody talks about it. Margaret finally had the conversation she should have had before moving. And while it was awkward at first, it saved her relationship. Once expectations were clear, both she and her daughter felt relieved. The truth is, proximity doesn't automatically equal closeness. Relationships thrive on understanding, not assumption. 11. Conflict over lifestyle differences. Helen never thought she'd argue about bedtime routines, but here she was standing in her daughter's kitchen, feeling like an outsider in her own family. It had started small. She suggested her grandkids should eat more vegetables. Then she casually mentioned that maybe screen time was a little excessive. And before she knew it, her daughter was on edge every time Helen gave advice. The tension grew. Helen felt like she was walking on eggshells, constantly holding back comments, worried that anything she said would spark an argument. Meanwhile, her daughter felt judged, like every parenting decision was under a microscope. This is a common struggle when parents and children start living too close. Different generations, different values, different ways of doing things. What once seemed like harmless advice suddenly feels like interference. But here's the tough reality. It's not your house, not your rule. That doesn't mean you have to agree with everything. It just means you have to choose your battles wisely. Instead of offering advice freely, wait until it's asked for. If a situation isn't directly affecting you, sometimes it's better to let it go. Shifting from judgment to understanding makes all the difference. Once Helen stopped trying to change her daughter's parenting, the tension eased, and ironically, once she backed off, her daughter started asking for advice. Because here's the truth, your kids don't need another parent. They need a supportive, loving presence. 12. Feeling unappreciated. Stanley was tired. Tired of bending over backwards to be helpful. Tired of being the first to offer assistance, but the last to get a thank you. When he moved near his son, he told himself he wouldn't be the needy parent. Instead, he babysat, ran errands, fixed things around the house, but as time went on, it felt less like he was helping, and more like he was expected to do these things. No invitations to dinner, no calls, just to check in. Just, "Dad, can you pick up the kids?" Or, "Dad, can you take care of this?" And it hurt. Many seniors feel this way after moving closer to family. They start with a willingness to give, but when their contributions aren't acknowledged, resentment builds. It's not that their kids don't love them, it's just that familiarity can breed complacency. When Stanley finally said, "Hey, I love helping, but I'd also love a dinner invite sometime," his son blinked in surprise. He hadn't even realized his father felt left out. And that's the biggest takeaway. People won't always recognize your value until you stop giving it away for free. 13. Your kids are planning to relocate. Margaret had barely settled into her new routine when her daughter dropped the news. They might be moving. It wasn't a definite plan yet, but there were job opportunities in another state. The schools were better for the kids. It would be a great opportunity for the whole family. "Of course, Mom," her daughter reassured her. "We'd love for you to come with us." Margaret forced a smile, but inside her heart sank. Another move, packing, selling, relocating again. She had already left behind her friends, her favorite coffee shop, her comfortable home. Could she do it all over again? This is a common pitfall of moving closer to family. Life doesn't stand still. Your children might relocate for work, better schools, or just a fresh start. And while they have the flexibility to pack up and go, you may not. Margaret eventually realized she couldn't keep chasing her family. Instead, she needed to create a life she loved independent of their plans. She stayed put, found a community that made her feel at home, and built a routine that made her days fulfilling. And when her daughter did eventually move, Margaret didn't feel lost. She felt ready. 14. You feel more stressed than before. Helen had pictured a life of ease when she moved near her son. No more worrying about shoveling snow, long drives to family gatherings, or feeling isolated during the holidays. But instead of relief, she felt more stressed than ever. There was always something, an obligation, an expectation, an unspoken pressure. Babysitting, when she didn't feel up to it. Attending every school event, every birthday, every get-together. At first it felt nice to be included. But soon, it felt like she couldn't say no. And then there were the small tensions. Comments about how she spent her money. Disagreements over how she should handle her health. Suggestions that she shouldn't be living alone, or that maybe assisted living was a better idea. She felt like she was constantly on edge, trying to navigate her role in the family without overstepping or disappearing completely. Helen finally had to make a tough decision. She moved back. Not because she didn't love her family, but because she needed to love herself too. She found a quieter town, closer to old friends, where she could set her own schedule, without the constant pressure of family expectations. Because the truth is, moving near family should bring comfort, not more stress. If it doesn't, It might be time to rethink the decision. 15. You're missing out on a better life elsewhere. Stanley had spent years dreaming of moving to Florida, warm weather, senior-friendly communities, a slower pace of life. But when his daughter suggested he move near her instead, he put that dream on hold. She made a good argument. He'd be closer to family, wouldn't have to worry about being alone, and could enjoy the grandkids. It all made sense. So he ignored the small voice inside that whispered, "But is this what you really want?" Months later, he found himself scrolling through pictures of his old retirement dream. Friends who had moved to places they loved, traveling, making new connections, starting fresh adventures. And here he was, near his daughter but not happy. This happens more often than you'd think. Seniors make decisions based on family obligations rather than personal desires. And before they know it, they're living a life they never truly wanted. Stanley eventually made the move to Florida. It was hard at first, explaining to his daughter that loving family doesn't mean sacrificing personal happiness. But once he did, something amazing happened. His relationship with his daughter actually improved. The distance made their visits more intentional, their conversations more meaningful, because in the end, being near your kids isn't the only path to happiness. Sometimes the best thing you can do for them and for yourself is to choose the life that truly fulfills you. So, what's the takeaway? Moving near your kids sounds like a hallmark moment, but reality, it's more like an awkward sitcom with unexpected plot twists. Your happiness isn't a zip code, it's how you live. So tell me, would you make the move or stay put? Drop your thoughts below.